Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm TCaptainX. I have been testing for hours and running multiple benchmarks to get you guys the best graphic settings in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 so that you can increase your FPS, improve your visibility, and just make your game look nicer to the eye. Now, this video is intended for PC users, but console users can still get some benefit out of this, but a lot of the settings in this video, you just don't have access to change it. I also want to note that I'm on a pretty high-end PC. I have a 4090 GPU and an Intel i9-13900KS CPU, so I cannot guarantee you guys are gonna get the same frames that I'm getting, but we can definitely improve a lot of things here. Now, before we even get started in the graphic settings, go to your account and network settings and make sure your clouded settings is turned off. If you leave this on, this will tend to accidentally reset your settings, and it is just very frustrating because I've had to reset mine so many times until I figured this one out. Okay, now going into our display tab under the graphic settings. For the display mode, full screen exclusive is definitely going to be best in terms of pure performance, making that latency as low as possible. But if you have multiple monitors, nothing wrong with using full screen borderless. Makes it much easier to go between those different monitors, and it really shouldn't hit your performance much at all. Of course, make sure our display monitor and our adapter are set to the correct ones here, whatever you're using. For your screen refresh rate, the highest setting is going to be ideal, generally auto. This depends on the refresh rate of your monitor. So I'm on a 240 hertz monitor, so the auto is 239. I don't know why exactly it does that. It's supposed to be a little bit more optimal than actually going all the way to 240. For display resolution, auto should be fine, or you can manually set it. I am on a 2K or a 1440p monitor, so I'm 2560 by 1440. A lot of you guys are probably going to be on 1920 by 1080. Aspect ratio, automatic should pick it up just fine, or you can manually set this. Most of you guys will be 16 by 9. This is going to be your horizontal resolution divided by your vertical resolution of your monitor to give you your aspect ratio. Now, one thing I want to mention is when we are totally done with all of our settings in game, make sure you restart your shaders. That way, all of your settings can basically adjust and your shaders can download based off of your new current settings. For display gamma, if you are on a monitor, then we're going to want to be on 2.2, but if you're on a TV, you would be on 2.4. Gamma brightness, you can probably leave this on 50, but I like to turn mine up just slightly, but don't go too crazy with this because going really high can make your game just look washed out and really nasty. All right, NVIDIA Reflex low latency. This is a little bit of a confusing setting, but very, very important. This depends if you are GPU bottlenecked or CPU bottlenecked. To test this, it's very easy. Just go into the benchmark and then run the benchmark, and it will tell you which one is a higher bottleneck limiting you in your FPS. The vast majority of you guys are probably going to be GPU bottlenecked or GPU bound, and that means we are going to set it to on. If you are CPU bound or CPU bottlenecked, then we will do on plus boost, and there really should be no reason to leave this off. Another way of testing this is if you actually go into a game and if you turn on your telemetry for your GPU time and your CPU time, which is in your interface settings, the one that is higher is what you are bound to or bottleneck. Now in the menu, this is not accurate, but if I were to go into a game, my GPU time is generally slightly higher than my CPU time, meaning I am GPU bottlenecked. For sustainability, the eco mode, we can put this on custom, and then I would generally recommend you guys keep both of your V-Syncs off unless you are getting screen tearing. If you look at this picture here, you can see this kind of horizontal tear across the screen where things don't line up. That is what screen tearing is. If you are noticing that, then you're gonna wanna turn this on. Start with the lower number and work up until you don't notice it, because the more V-Sync you have, the more input latency or kind of like lag essentially you will get, and that is in order so that it will fix that tearing. For the custom frame rate limit, putting this to unlimited is totally fine. You also could go to custom and then you could set different things here. So I have a 240 hertz monitor. I could just max it at 240, and then I could turn my menu and out of focus down if I wanted to, but it really doesn't matter that much. I normally just leave mine on unlimited. The reduce menu render resolution, this is a newer setting. Basically what this does is if you're on optimal or maximal, it will lower the quality of your menu to kind of like save on performance. So maybe if you have like overheating issues with your PC, you would put this to maximal, but I just leave mine on native because I don't want my menu to look nasty and ugly. Pause game rendering, go ahead and leave this off. Reduce quality when inactive. If you leave your game running, it will basically lower the quality of the game. Again, just to kind of not overheat. Shouldn't really matter much, but whatever, I'm gonna just leave that on. Focus mode, definitely wanna leave this down to 0, and then HDR, we're gonna leave this off. All right, now moving over to the quality tab in graphics. For our preset, this is definitely gonna be custom. For render resolution, just leave this on 100. Some people will tell you, crank this all the way up to 200, but if you go above this, if your monitor does not support this resolution, you're literally wasting your time because your game is trying to render a higher quality that your monitor monitor literally cannot do. So just leave this guy on 100 and make sure this is the right resolution for your monitor. Now, if you're on a really low end PC and you're struggling to get frames, you can consider turning your dynamic resolution on, and then you can set your target frame rate. So what this does is it will lower the resolution to try to maintain that frame rate. So this one would be to maintain 60 FPS. Now, I'm on a high-end PC. I would only recommend you do this if you're really struggling for FPS. All right, upscaling and sharpening is a very important setting here. Fidelity FX Cast has been like the go-to one for the last several years in Call of Duty. This tends to make our game look nice and sharp and crisp, kind of be able to spot enemies between different backgrounds much better with really no negative hit to our performance. And then in the show more tab, you can adjust the strengths of this. I only noticed maybe a slight FPS drop when I cranked this all the way to 100 and ran different benchmarks. This will make things even kind of sharper and more crisp edges, but personally, I like to stay around that 70 mark, and I don't notice any negative hits to our FPS. Now, some people are crazy about like NVIDIA DLSS and the image scaling and stuff. Those, in my opinion, they make the game look worse, and they will say your FPS is better, but it's really not. Same with this NVIDIA DLSS frame generation. If you turn this on, yes, you will get more FPS, but it will cause a ton of input latency and input delay, and it is absolutely not worth doing. All right, VRAM target scale. This one is going to depend a lot on your GPU. Now, again, I'm on a 4090. I have lots of VRAM to spare. I can crank this to 90, and I did not notice any performance hits when running benchmarks from 50 versus 90. If when you run that benchmark and your low 1% FPS is really bad, or you notice lots of hitching or big stutters, then definitely start to turn this down until that goes away. So again, if you're on like a really old or kind of budget GPU, you probably want to start turning this VRAM scale target down, and that should decrease those stutters. Variable rate shading is a very nice setting. This is a newer setting as of about a year ago, I believe. And this one actually will kind of AI generate frames to my understanding, but this one won't make the game look worse, and it actually makes it perform better. All right, going on to the details and textures tab. Texture resolution. This one again depends a lot on your PC and also your goal here. Now, again, I'm on a pretty high-end PC, so I can get away with normal and really not suffer hardly any performance. I don't really recommend high for anyone unless maybe you're playing the campaign, but for most people, you're probably going to be on low. There is a decent hit in terms of the quality of images from normal to low. Very low things start to look pretty ugly and kind of like Play-Doh in certain things, but if you're on a low-end PC, this is going to have a big hit in helping your FPS. For texture, filter, anisotropic, this one doesn't tend to affect FPS, at least I did not notice, so I'm leaving that one on high. Depth of field, make sure this is off, creates a really weird effect. Detail quality, leave this to low. This has to do with like foliage and grass and stuff. Particle resolution, definitely want to make sure we turn this one to very low. This can really hurt our FPS when like explosions and stuff are happening. Bullet impacts, I like to leave this one on so I can see like the bullets hit the walls, but persistent effects, we're going to turn this one off. Shader quality, this is a big one that can really affect our FPS. Definitely want to turn this one down to low if performance is your goal. On-demand texturing, we're going to set this to minimal, and in the show more, turn down this as low as it goes. This is a setting that causes a lot of issues with FPS, and we want to avoid this. Unfortunately, we cannot turn this off though. And then local texture streaming quality, we're going to leave this one on normal. If you're on a budget PC, you want to really try to maximize performance, you can go to low, but I did not notice a performance hit here. For shadow and lighting, shadows tends to be a big thing that really messes with your FPS. So the general rule of thing is turn all of this to low. Now, I did notice when I went to very low on shadow quality, I did get a bit better FPS, but the shadows look like blocky. They look just kind of gross. So low, they don't look too bad. They look a lot better on normal, but the higher, the more you go, the bigger it hits your FPS. So if your goal is performance, but the game look okay, low. If you're on a budget PC, very low. But if you want the game to look a little bit nicer, normal. And then all of these other ones, we're going to go off or low, again, just because shadows really can tend to hurt our FPS. And then for the environment, same thing here. All of these are going to be off or as the lowest setting, because these can make the game look cool, but they don't really do anything beneficial in terms of our visibility and like seeing enemies. All right, going over to the view tab. Now, field of view is a personal preference here. Generally, I'm going to recommend that almost everybody be at least 110 or higher. The majority of people tend to play on 120. The bigger the number, the wider your field of view, the larger peripheral vision you can see. But the smaller the number, the more zoomed in we're going to be, and enemies are going to appear a little bit closer. But you will have more visual recoil the lower your FOV goes. ADS field of view, again, I talk about this in my controller and mouse and keyboard settings video a little bit more in depth, but most people are going to tend to like affected. And for all of our field of views, we're going to keep these to wide. The motion blurs, all of these to off, and then the camera movements to least. So in our interface settings now, under the global tab here, If you want your FPS on under telemetry, make sure you have that checked here. I don't normally like to leave my GPU time and CPU time on, but for the purpose of finding out which one you're bound to, you're gonna wanna turn those on. Under readability, I'd recommend you go down to the color customization, and in the color filter, change this to filter 2. This will make the game just look, it just pops a little bit better. It makes the game just a little bit more vibrant. And then for your filter target, you can do both or world, but I normally just leave it on both and then leave those intensities to 100. And then under the gameplay HUD, make sure your minimap shape is set to square, your rotation on, your horizontal compass type makes it a lot easier to see that big compass at the top of your screen. I also like to have my crosshairs on, and I have a custom colored crosshair, which is a fun setting to have. Okay, we're done with the in-game settings. So remember, go ahead and hit our restart shaders here. We're gonna hit restart, and then we have to actually close out of our game. And then when we go back in, it will restart the shader process. All right, now we're gonna cover some actual PC settings outside of the game. First, I recommend you are on the latest NVIDIA GPU driver, assuming you're on a NVIDIA GPU. So I am on 566.03. This came out just the other day before Black Ops 6 dropped. It's running fine for me, have not had any issues. I don't update my drivers every time a new one comes out, because sometimes when a new one comes out, they cause issues and they cause dev errors and things like that. But this one is working. If you don't know how to do that, you go to nvidia.com. You can just put in all the stuff for whatever type of PC and GPU you have, you search for it, and then you will find it, and then it will come up with all of the latest drivers. You just download it, follow the steps. It's pretty simple. After that, let's go to our NVIDIA control panel. So right click on your screen, open NVIDIA control panel. Again, if you have an AMD card, I'm sorry, this is gonna be a little bit different for you. So you might have to find a specific video for that. We're gonna go to our manage 3D settings here. Now you can change this in the program settings and set this only to Call of Duty, but I just have it on global settings here. I'm gonna slowly scroll through here, and you can pause and copy these if you would like. Now this can be dependent based on your PC hardware and stuff like that. There's not a exact right answer for what is best here. A lot of people do like recommend different things. Everything that I have here on screen is working just fine for me though. So if you want to copy those, feel free to. Next, go to the change resolution tab here, and please, for the love of God, make sure your refresh rate for your monitor is set as high as it can go. The amount of people that they'll get a super nice gaming monitor and they're like, yeah, man, I got this new sick monitor, dude. It's 1,000 FPS, but they have their refresh rate set to 60, and that means they're only getting 60 FPS. Yeah, don't do that. So make sure this is set to the highest one, hit apply, and there you go. Then in our adjust desktop color settings, this is gonna make our game look much more vibrant and just make the colors pop. The digital vibrance, turn this up. You can go as little as like 60, but some people will go all the way to 100. I like to say in kind of the 80-ish% range. This just makes our colors much more vibrant. And then under the adjust video color settings here, click with the NVIDIA settings, advanced, and change the dynamic range from limited to full, and then we're gonna hit apply. All right, now let's cover a few Windows settings here. So type in power and then do choose a power plan and make sure we are on high performance. After that, we are going to search game and go to game mode settings here, turn our game mode to on, and then click the graphic settings button right here. And on the hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, turn this on. You will probably have to restart your PC if this was off before. One other thing you can do is you can actually select specific apps on your PC to be high performance to get dedicated resources. So I have Call of Duty set for that as well. All right, we're now gonna go into our game file and click on your documents tab here, and then go to documents. Okay, documents tab, then Call of Duty, open that. And then we're gonna open the players tab. Open that. And then we're gonna look for the S.1.0 COD 24. The S1, these might change and get updated as like season 1, season 2 comes, I'm not sure. But you're gonna look for the COD 24. The 23 is MW3, 22 is MW2, so we don't want those. And look for the one that is the most plain, simple one, not the ones that have like text 1, M, text 0. Look for the just plain one. Yours might just be .txt, or it might be plain like mine and just be COD 24. Then go ahead and open that. You can just open it with a traditional notepad. Now I do want to mention here, the last time I made one of these videos, the lovely hacker hunter community tried claiming that I was cheating and I was manipulating the game files. And the ironic thing about this is that I actually had a chance to go out to Treyarch Studios back in MW3 when we got to playtest Fortress Keep early. And I literally asked the dev, I said, hey, are we allowed to do this? Is this like cheating? And they just laughed and they're like, of course you can do it. It's totally fine. This is basically just advanced settings for PC. Console, I'm sorry, you can't do this, but this is not cheating, for the love of God. So basically this is all of our settings that we can can change in game. So like you could change like our texture resolution in here and save it, and then it would apply to game. But there's a few settings that aren't listed in game. And so to find those, we're gonna hit Control F. The first one we're gonna do is renderer. So type in renderer and hit find. And this is a very important setting. This is the most important setting here. We're gonna find the one that says renderer worker count. And this number here is what we're going to change. Now this depends on the CPU that you have. If you have an Intel CPU, you're gonna type in Google, you're gonna type in the name of your CPU. So I have a Intel i9, oh, it is 13900KS. We're gonna click on this and we're gonna look for the number of performance cores. I have 8 on my CPU. For any Intel CPU, take the number of performance cores minus 1. So for me, that is gonna be 7. But if you are on an AMD CPU, you're gonna take the total number of CPU cores and divide it by 2. So for this one, it would be 6 is what we're gonna put in. So again, mine was 8, I'm Intel, so it's minus 1. If you were Ryzen, it's cores divided by 2. Now that's really by far the most important setting that we need to change. There's a few other ones that we can adjust, and these have been in the game for a while. So if we Control F and do blood, the first one that's gonna show up here is limit blood effects. And we're gonna put that as true. This was already set to true for me when I opened it. Right below it is limiting blood effects. Change this number here all the way to 1. And this just decreases the amount of blood that comes out when you're shooting people. And it's just less stuff for your PC to have to render, and it should improve our FPS some. If we keep scrolling down a little bit more, you're gonna see show blood effects, and make sure this one is on false, which again, that just decreases the blood effects. And then right below that, weapons eject brass. We're gonna also change this to false, and that will turn off the like shells shooting out from your gun. And it's just less stuff for your PC to render. And then when we're done, hit file and hit save. And then that is gonna wrap things up. I would just recommend you probably wanna do a restart of your PC, boot your game up and let those shaders finish downloading, and then try things out. If you guys have questions, please let me know. If you're looking for my controller settings or my mouse and keyboard settings, I've already made videos for those, and I will link those here at the end. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys. Come check out a stream over here on YouTube or on Twitch, whichever one you prefer watching. We'll see you in the next one.